all Bonami's family. Great supportive community, close-knit caring family. We're non-judgy, blanket fuzzy, stigma-free. All Bonami's family, friends, family, and community. We all Bonami's family. Teacher sharing is our key. Great big thanks to you all.
All right. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stigma Stompers, NAMI, Erie County, Pennsylvania's one and only podcast. I am one of your hosts, Abby.
And I'm your other host, Janana.
Today we are talking about how art helps your mental wellness, art therapy, and we're joined with a special guest, Shelby Neal. So I'm going to let Shelby take it over and give us a little tidbit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shelby. I am a registered art therapist. I'm also a licensed professional counselor and a drug and alcohol specialist and a trauma professional as well. So there's a lot going on there. I work at Stairways Behavioral Health at the Drug and Alcohol Clinic. But I also have my own private practice, and that is Inner Alchemy Art and Therapy.
Oh, awesome.
Beautiful.
That's
Yes.
amazing. So what inspired you to pursue art therapy?
Okay, so honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
so
say-
fair. That's so fair.
I would say that my dad inspired me the most to pursue art. He was just always so proud of me, and like some of my earliest memories are with him, like coloring and watching cartoons. Such a fun time for me. I looked forward to it. And then I don't know, in like second grade or something, he put one of my drawings into a community art contest, and I won.
That's so cool.
And he just always had that like pride in me, so that was wonderful. And then I don't know, I would say my mom and my grandma too. So they were more of like inspiring of success. They knew I was artistic as well, and they loved that about me, especially my grandma. But they were definitely more like, be successful.
Yeah.
So, that led me to go to school. Fast forward, 2012. I got my bachelor's in fine arts, minor in psychology, and, mom and grandma voice in the back like, hey, don't be a starving artist, right? So I get my teacher certification in art. Tried that out. During that process, you have to go through like student teaching, so it's kind of like an internship. And so during that process, one of the supervising teachers, and her and I just like were so different. She's very academic and is like teaching the technical skill, and I'm like, hey, little kids, like, how do you feel? So it really showed me that like public school is not where I was meant to be. However, my advising teacher for my bachelor's program is a board certified art therapist. So when I finished that, she was just like, hey, I'm starting my own art therapy program, graduate program at the college I was already attending. So she was accepting applicants, and I applied, and here we are.
That's
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Do you feel like while, doing that student teaching that you really cared more about like the feelings of the kids, what the art inspired them?
100%.
Yeah.
I have like distinct memories of doing these warm versus cool birds. So like they did outlines of birds in glue, and then on the inside they would use like chalk pastels to do like hot feelings, and then the cool feelings.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So what's some of the feedback you got from these kids, if you don't mind sharing, especially that being that first interaction you have and realizing, hey, I want it to be more than just art, more of like the emotional side.
I mean,
what's some feedback?
for the elementary kids, like they're just kind of there, like doing their thing. So I wouldn't say I got much feedback from like the elementary kiddos. But like high school level, I mean, yeah, like they love to make art too, because it's an outlet. Like they just want to express themselves. So like throw it at me.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing.
Can you kind of talk about the differences between art therapy and talk therapy? I feel like there's like some maybe obvious ones and then maybe some not so obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also have a memory of being in like middle school. I don't know, like early 2000s or something, and a teacher being like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I mustered something along the lines of art therapy, and he's like, what the heck's that? Well, I don't know. As like an 11-year-old, I didn't know what that was, but I knew, like, I like art. It helps me. That's got to be a thing, right?
Yeah.
So through my experiences and training and all that, I've definitely learned what the major differences are. And I get asked this question all the time, too. And, I mean, art therapy isn't absent from talk therapy. You know, we do tons of talking as well. But I think the main difference is that art is a tool that is used in session. So it's just something to make it tangible, right? It's visual, it's tactile. I can work with it, and it kind of facilitates awareness, right? Like it's there on paper. I can see it. You can see it. Let's talk about this.
So what are some things you look for in art therapy? Like do you just give someone a piece of paper and say, hey, draw something, and then interpret it that way? Could you explain a little bit more how art therapy actually works?
So the way it kind of presents in session is so different based on, you know, the client's need and whatnot. A lot of times it is just, you know, hey, here's paper. Let's put that onto paper. Or if I'm noticing that they're kind of going through something or trying to express something, you know, it's kind of like, oh, let's try this activity. You know, let's try this directive, you know, this process.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
But honestly, a lot of times my clients will be making artwork outside, and they'll either like bring it in, or they just tell me about it, and we can just have a conversation about their process and what they were creating, and that's really therapeutic for them as well.
Yeah. So do you, like, is there any things specific you look at in the art, or is it more of them explaining how they were feeling while making that art?
There's definitely, like, things that mean certain things, you know? So, for instance, there is a projective drawing assessment that a lot of art therapists will do called the house tree person. It's kind of like the most popular one. And a lot of that is we look at what they're drawing and what that means, you know, where it's placed on the paper, its color, its form, its size, its everything. Kind of working, you know, things like the house, the tree, and the person, really, they are all kind of indicators of our self-concept and the way that we relate to the world and interact with the world and things like that. So we definitely look for certain things. A good example would be a tree, right? If it's a big, strong tree with a big, nice canopy and root system at the bottom, we're like, okay, this is pretty healthy. It kind of shows that maybe you have a solid self-concept of yourself. You're rooted, you're grounded, you've got support, so there's branches there, you're very social, you know, things of that nature.
That's awesome.
That's very interesting.
Does color therapy play into that? Because I know we did a episode last year on talking about, like, colors and how they can affect someone's mood and things like that. Does that contribute into art therapy at all?
Absolutely. I've done a lot of stuff with just understanding color in regard to emotion. You know, think of 5 emotions and assign it a color, right? What's that emotion kind of trigger in your brain when you think of a color? You know, these things matter. You know, the way that you walk into a room, and if it's painted all, you know, gray or all blue or green, whatever, you know, it exerts a certain feeling within you, and it's very specific to each individual.
Yeah, now that you mentioned the specific colors depending on, you know, the emotion, I always think of Inside Out. Constantly, now that's stuck in my head. And we actually have Inside Out 2 we're showing this year. Do you want to explain when that is real quick?
Sure.
Just
shameless plug. We host a mental health movie night, and this year it's in June. I don't remember the day off the top of my head, but it's in June, and we show the movie, and then we have the kids we give them like coloring packets and activities that relate to the movie, but also to their mental health. So that's a free thing we do in June. Yeah, I have to plug it.
You should let your clients know, or if you want to. We've had so many people join us, and it kind of I wouldn't say exactly art therapy, but we do like a little bit of the art side of things to tie it into the movie. But that's what I always think about when you mentioned emotions. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, joy, the yellow and bright color. And yeah, I had to mention that.
Yeah. I mean, we use color so much, even like in advertisement. There's a reason that McDonald's is red and yellow and it's got those big arches,
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. When we did that episode, we were like, oh my gosh, like it all makes sense now. When before that, it was like, oh, it's just a color, you don't really think about it much.
What are some of the most common mental health challenges that art therapy can help with?
This is interesting because I think that art therapy can help everybody for everything, I don't know. I think it's really good as a tool to combat, like resistance, when people are kind of just trying to avoid stuff, but it's kind of like, well, this is here, right? It's present.
Yeah. Would you say it's good for people who experience a trauma, and whether it's like consciously or subconsciously, they're packing that away? Do you think that helps kind of pull that out of them?
Oh, definitely. Because the artwork elicits responses. You're going through these processes. A big part of trauma therapy is kind of reliving some stuff, like hashing it out. And like when you're visualizing it, you're feeling it, you're seeing it. It's just using a lot more processes than just talking would.
Yeah,
definitely.
Have you seen when, you do that art therapy that it opens up the door to more of the talk therapy? That's kind of what I feel like you are talking about. But could you explain a little bit more? Like, does the person become more comfortable, or do you know what to talk about then? Like, what's that look like?
It really depends on the client as well. So just recently I was doing this group, and through the art making, it definitely opened up some traumas that I wasn't necessarily prepared for at that time, but it came out, right? So then it's like, all right, let's address this,
Yeah. Aww.
Yeah.
That must be tough.
Yeah, that's just how it is. You never know what's gonna like elicit something in someone. So we just do this, and then boom.
True. And our art, I feel like, is so unique, just like each individual is. So that's amazing.
What do you say to people who might think they're not artistic enough for art therapy? Because I feel like there could be some fear of like, oh, I'm not good at drawing, so.
Yeah, I would say lies. Because it's not about the product. It's not about being artistic. It's more about being creative.
Yeah,
definitely. So, I tell clients all the time, put the pen on the paper and just see what happens. Let it just go. That's going to elicit some kind of response in you. It's going to feel some type of way.
Yeah.
And then once you're doing it, then you get somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Now you may have direction, or you just process through this, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's also important to point out that like it is an option for people. I feel like people learn so many different ways. So like one learning style doesn't fit every person. Some people need tactile. Some people can just hear it. So I think that translates over to therapy as well. Some people can just talk it out. But if you're someone that maybe was a tactile learner and you're trying to do like just talk therapy, maybe try adding a tactile component through art therapy. I think it's just important that people know they have options.
In art therapy, there's this model that we use, or at least I use, the expressive therapies continuum. So it does a very good job at showing how art kind of utilizes different brain processes, and how being aware of that helps you kind of gear certain materials and processes. So it's like a 3 bipolar horizontal lines, and then one in the center. And that's like the creative level. Kinesthetic and sensory. So that's the first one. So the kinesthetic is very like movement based. That is, kids breaking crayons, just like moving, dancing, that kind of stuff. And the next one is the perceptual and affective, and that is more feeling based. And same with the sensory. The sensory on the opposite side of the kinesthetic is really good for children, but also that's what's really good for trauma too. It's just really feeling it. And the difference that's like playing in sand, right? Where you're just focused on that feeling. And then perceptual and affective, similarly focused on that feeling. And then the last one is the cognitive and the symbolic. This is where you will see people doing collage a lot of the times. You know, it's very or words or symbols, right? I get that, and I know that they're at that level, and that tells me that they're not willing to go to a deeper emotional level yet. So we may work, you know, there for a little bit for them to gain their comfort, and then, you know, transition however we need to, or vice versa, right? If they're super emotional, it's kind of like, all right, how can we add in more structure here and regulation and all that good. Yep. And then that creative level that's horizontal or that's vertical, that's kind of like the balance, right? The sweet spot where we want to be. And that's kind of common with like the state of flow. You guys familiar with the state of flow? No, the state of flow, that's like when your ability and the task at hand are matched up. We feel that when we're getting lost in whatever we're doing, right? Whether that's reading a good book and you're like, wow, 3 hours went by, you know, that's that state of flow.
Okay. That's amazing. Yeah. So would you say, since we know there's different forms of art, so there's music, there's poetry, you know, we've had guests join us who talked about how they express their emotions through music, C. Brown, and then we've also had someone discuss, you know, how poetry has helped them in writing stuff down, which was Jeremy. Are those some of the techniques you use as well, or is it strictly just art where it's drawing and coloring and things like that?
No, absolutely. We incorporate anything. I'm very open and flexible with my clients and kind of experimental, you know. Let's try it out. Sure, try this. Let's, you know, let's work with those leaves, you know, anything like that. I've done things with clients too of how we are positioning, you know, how we walk. You know, I mean, I have an obstacle course group that I do with my clients. You know,
that's
very cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that because I feel like that's so important. That's why I wanted to ask it because, you know, there are those different forms of art, and like you said, what if someone thinks they're not artistic? Well, there's other ways, you know, you can express that. So I love that.
And I think that's a misconception too. Is like,
of course,
art just isn't drawing.
Yep. No, I agree.
True, very true.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I do want to touch base real quick. I know when we first met, we met at a tabling event at Mercyhurst, and you had the reverse coloring sheets. And I know I took them back to the office, and I was like, I've never seen this before. Like, this is so amazing. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about the reverse coloring sheet and how that works and, you know, how that helps, just everything about it, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. So my coworker, who's not an art therapist, she's the one who introduced me to them, and it was like mind-blowing, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, where have you been my entire life? So we're familiar with the typical coloring page, right? It's got the black outline and you color in the forms in the different shapes. Well, the reverse coloring pages is just color on the page in no specific way, and it's absent from the lines. So you have to make the lines. And that process feels very different than when your boundaries and limits are already imposed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's so cool. I feel like I would love that because I sometimes get very annoyed with, like, I'm like, no, I want this to look this way, but I can't because the line's already there. So I feel like I should try that.
You know, like you always hear, like, color outside the lines.
Yeah,
I'm going to
really
make my lines however I want to.
Yeah, I absolutely
like
love that. When I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. And it's like so simple yet amazing. And it kind of reminds me, I don't know if it has anything to do with that one test. We usually see it like in the movies and
like
shows.
the Rorschach, so
yes,
like the ink blocks.
Yes. Does it have any correlation with that?
Maybe it could, but no. I mean the ink block test isn't the most reliable anyway. Yeah, I wouldn't say.
No, that's fair. So have you ever used the reverse coloring sheets in any of your sessions?
Absolutely. I use it quite frequently. You know, working in drug and alcohol, we get a lot of OCD type people. So it's kind of breaking away from this is my limits, my boundaries. I like to be told what to do, when to do it, you know, or whatever.
No,
Yeah.
that definitely
so
makes
smart.
sense.
I feel like OCD or even like type A personalities
Yeah.
struggle with. I mean, I do. I have to be inside the lines if I mess up even a
Yeah.
little.
So that's
Yeah,
a good
that's very cool.
exercise.
I mean, there is a component to it also where you can find shapes and stuff like that. I think that's where you were getting to with like the ink blot.
Yes.
I mean, sure, you could definitely use that because finding those shapes may bring up certain conversations that lead to, you know, underlying matters and stuff. But no, definitely not the same as like an ink block would be used.
That was going to actually be my
Yeah.
next question because I know I looked at it and I'm like, oh, that looks like a bird, like
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. It looks exactly like a bird. This looks like that. Like, I feel like I was seeing different pictures than maybe someone else would be seeing. So that's why I
So-
wanted to bring that up.
Right. So I think that there is like a personality or I don't know, kind of activating thing there, you know, where you're going to see something completely different than you're going to see it, right?
Yeah.
But this is where interpretation kind of comes into play, or asking questions a lot. You know, in art therapy, we are told not to interpret at all, but I find it is an effective tool, so I do it. Sorry. Not
Hey,
sorry.
that is okay.
Especially in drug and alcohol, because those clients oftentimes they don't really want to be there. You know, probation or other OCY or other sources are like forcing them to be there. So we have to be like, no, this is fact. You know, like this is what I'm seeing. And there's always like scheming and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
they may give you the tree that's like got the whole like, you know, shebang, and you're like, well, why are you here if everything is so great? You know.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And kind of like you mentioned, coloring outside the lines or making your own lines, even though that
Yes.
might not be the practical or the way you were taught to do it, it helps individuals. So I'm all for it. If it helps people, it doesn't have to necessarily be what was taught the right way.
Yeah.
So I love that.
What are some other like unique or unexpected techniques you use in sessions?
Well, I think before I kind of said like I'm open to like pretty much everything. So whatever you're gonna bring in, like that's cool, or just I don't know. I'm just open to anything. Yeah.
What's one of the like more interesting ones that you've had a client actually like bring in to do?
Let's see. I've done some graffiti stuff where clients would bring in just like random objects from home or wherever they found. Just the other day, I had a client like, "Hey, can I go outside and like grab some nature?" Yes,
Oh, I love
go
that.
for it. You know, and then they're incorporating that into whatever they're making. And of course, like
cool.
there's the obstacle course, which
Yeah.
I get a lot of great feedback from that one.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love
That's
that. I've always wondered, seeing the graffiti, you know, throughout the city, how people get to do the graffiti like under the bridges and like those tough,
Magic.
hard. Yeah, literally. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's talent. But I love that. So, kind of leading into some success stories, do you mind sharing a story where someone experienced a breakthrough or they
Yes.
had success with art therapy?
I had this one client. She was really struggling with this other version of herself. This self was the one that she identified with, as Erie's most wanted, as, her active addiction person. And she just couldn't stand it. She hated it. But we were able to kind of, in the end, develop a positive relationship there. We started with first learning about this monster version of her, then once we got like more trust built, then we were able to draw it. So she drew this image of what she felt her monster looked like, and that's very powerful because it unblends. Right now we're separate. It is separate from me. I can look at it, I can face it, and it can face me, right? And it's very vulnerable. Again, we're just learning about it. I'm asking her questions. She's also, learning about it as we're talking. And then that transitioned into having a conversation with it through a non-dominant hand writing exercise. So with her dominant hand, she would ask questions or say certain things, and then with her non-dominant hand, she would respond as if she were her monster version, right? Because this non-dominant hand is like that early version of ourselves, the one that is tied to our exile parts, our wounded parts, you know, the ones that are seen trauma, you know, felt trauma. And then, yes, and it was so powerful because through that she realized this monster isn't a monster. It's a part of me that helped me survive this lifestyle, these situations, and her past traumas. And it's actually helping her. It's not in helpful ways now, right?
Right.
But at that time, like it was like her best friend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's so
Have
cool.
that. Yeah. The fact that, you know, something when you think about it as simple as doing some art therapy where it's not, you know, going through extensive things that you have to do, but like something that is probably enjoyable. I've never tried it, but I'm sure it's enjoyable because it's art.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic. To have that transformation and come
I
to
feel
that
like
realization.
it's really cool with that story specifically. Like, it was all still her doing it, you know? Like, she was writing her questions, but she was also answering them. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything like that. That's very interesting.
I do a lot of parts work, so there is a lot of different parts within us. You know, some people will say multiple personality. It's not multiple personality, not the way that I'm, you know, talking about it, but we have a part of us that feels angry while also feeling sad, right? Do you guys have kids?
No.
I don't
No.
know.
So one of the things with kids is it's hard for them to understand that if you're mad, then that means that you don't like me or love me. But it's like, no, I am mad. And I love you. And
Right.
I'm frustrated. And I'm excited, you know? It's like all those different parts.
Like,
so.
two things can
Yeah.
exist at once. Or,
Right,
like, three things
right.
can exist at once.
And what happens is those get, like, blended together. And then there's just like, I don't know what I'm feeling or doing. And it's like too many cooks at in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you sorry. Go ahead.
I think we're going to ask the same thing.
How to explain it to the kids?
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, same question, I guess. It just how do you explain that to the kids, you know, that can all exist at the same time?
The parts?
Yeah.
I mean, I just reiterate, you know, in those moments, I feel this way and I feel this way. And then just from doing that and repeating, it's kind of like, oh, I do feel this way and this way and this way. Oh, and this way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's amazing.
How do you adapt art therapy for different individuals? So, like, even like compared to two adults, or like adults to kids, or like someone with and someone without trauma. Like, how do you...
So with kids, they're so open to everything because, I mean, art and creativity is like their world at this point. Most people stop making art around the age of 10 because that's when it stops being offered in school as like part of the curriculum. It's more elective after that. So for kids, it just comes naturally. You know, they're pretty open to everything. I would say the biggest modifications were like, you know, child-safe scissors, right? Or things that are within their tangible ability, you know, because they're still working on their motor skills.
Yeah.
So we don't want to give them certain things that's just out of their ability.
Yeah.
With adults, I love to really challenge adults to be as childlike as they can, you know, like let's finger paint, let's, you know, break the crayons, that kind of stuff. If you know, if it calls for it. The biggest accommodation for adults is wording it or making it seem not childlike. You know, like we are not children. I'm not treating you like children. We are just doing a childlike process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important for people to be in tune with their inner child?
Oh, yes. 100%. Yeah, there's so much to learn there, and we neglect it. You know, society encourages that. You know, you're not a child, be mature. You know, act your age, all that good stuff. But really,
Yeah. I feel like people have interests or hobbies that they bring from childhood into adulthood, and I think depending on what it is, people get shamed for it. So like if your interest was like a TV show from when you were a kid and you still love it now,
right.
that's when you get told to stop acting like a child. But like they're in tune with what they like and they have like their entire lives.
I mean, our society is so left brain, right? It's so logical. You know, the way that you dress, the way that you get jobs, you do jobs. It's just everything is in that box.
Yep. It's actually really sad that the fact that at 10 years old, like around 10 is when we stop creating. That's actually really sad because we're children through like, I mean, technically, legally till we're 18.
Yeah.
But even past that, like, I wonder if more people had a creative outlet, even similar to the one that they had as a child, if that would make any difference in their day.
Right.
So that's really sad.
Yeah.
That makes me want to like color or something.
We should start doing that.
Do it.
Every day, just have a coloring session or
I love
something.
art.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I feel like it feels like I have no time, but like there's time where I'm spent scrolling on my phone where I could be doing something art related. So I think a lot of people think they don't have the time for even like any wellness tool, not just a creative one.
I mean, my old professor, like, she carries like an art journal with her. So like anytime that she's like in a waiting room or just kind of just chilling there, she's always doodling and you know, making whatever it is that she's got tasked for that day. I try to be that person, but I'm just not.
Hey,
but
that's fair.
you know,
Yeah.
you fit it in when you fit it in.
We're all different.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me to my next question. So if I came to art therapy and let's say I had no idea what the proper art tool was for me or what I enjoy or what I'm good at, whether it's painting or it's music or poetry, how would you pursue that to kind of figure out what the best course would be to help me personally?
So I try to allow people to start where they're comfortable, and usually that is pencil or marker on paper, and then we just kind of go from there. As I'm watching them like interact with their materials, then it's kind of like, oh, I think that you might benefit from this, you know. And so like then I'll kind of like throw it in, and then they maybe play with it, and then that's something to talk about. How did that feel to go from this to that? You know, some people are like, oh, I love that. But then other people are like, no.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, everyone's different. I love that. I'm sure it gets tricky at times. How do you, for your own mental health, you know, maybe if you have a client who, you know, you just aren't sure what's working now. I'm not sure if this has happened to you or not, but like, or hearing tough stories and traumas and things like that. What do you do for yourself to help kind of cope with it and de-stress?
Well, I have my own art therapist, and that helps.
Hey, I love that.
Yes. But I mean, just processing in your own form, you know, whether that's the meditation or making artwork. I know of art therapists that will create artwork after seeing certain clients, either as a way to help connect or understand them, or as a way to just kind of get that out. Yeah, I don't do that so much, but I do a lot of writing, I would say, and that helps.
Yeah, we have heard writing being very helpful.
Yeah, it's just, it gets it out. And writing is safe. We know how to do it. This is what we've been programmed to do all of our lives.
Yeah.
It's like the main focus of like 12 years of school.
Yeah, that is true.
I
But
feel
when
like
you are writing, I recommend, like, don't worry about the grammar and the punctuation or whether it makes sense. Like, just get it out. You know, if you ever looked at any of my notes or anything I write, like, I'm literally just like all over the place.
Yeah, I get that. It's like you said, I've tried to journal before, so it's like, don't worry about grammar, don't worry about punctuation or anything. And then you go back to read it, I'm like, what was I saying at this time? Like, I don't get it, because we're so used to having that grammar, but it in the moment it helps you, because like you said, you kind of get it off your chest and it's an outlet for you.
Yeah. And you can even like read through like, oh, that was silly. Why do I even think like that? Or it's like, oh, I understand now.
Yeah, that is true.
Kind of shifting gears a little, what are some common misconceptions about art therapy?
That art therapy is making art, because it's so much more than that. You know, art is therapeutic, but making art isn't art therapy. It just kind of is talking to yourself or a friend is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. You know, you really do need that trained professional that understands what is happening in that moment and what is coming out of it. Also, that art is for children, or art therapy is for children and not adults.
So I'm sure going through schooling, like all of us, you know, you can't be prepared for every outcome. How do you deal with maybe if there's a certain situation where you're not really sure what to do or maybe how to help that individual? You know, that happens to us where we're like, we've never encountered this before. What do we do next? How do you go about that uncertainty?
Trust yourself. Because you are going to absolutely experience things that you are not experienced in, you know, like that, especially going out of school, like you are told this is textbook stuff, but we know in reality nothing ever happens according to the textbook. So it's just a learning process. So I mean, you got to be patient with yourself. You got to trust yourself and know that even though you don't feel like you know what to do, like you know what to do, right? And it may not mean, you know, doing artwork, and just kind of sitting with them, you know, and just being there with them.
Yeah, I love that advice. I feel like we all need that. Sometimes we second guess ourselves and like, was that the right call? Should I have done that? So I love that, because we definitely all need to be more confident in ourselves.
And that's like the experimental nature that I kind of approach art therapy too, is like, let's just see what happens. And there's not that expectation of like, oh, this is the cure, do this. You know, it's like, yeah, let's just kind of see what's going to come up here.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. Are there any resources and books or activities that you recommend for people who want to explore art therapy on their own time?
Yes. I brought 2 of those books with me today.
Yay.
So I'm talking about this first one. So 344 Questions. The Creative Person's Do-It-Yourself Guide to Insight, Survival, and Artistic Fulfillment. There was no way that I was going to memorize that. But this is so cool because it's set up so our brains are not linear, right? It's not like do. It's scattered. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
So this is very much set up like that. And I kind of like ask a question and then you will answer it. And then based on that answer, it may have go this way or go this way. And it like directs you through it. But yeah, it's very eye-opening questions, gets you really thinking. And then some of them are kind of like, hey, work this out, you know, do an art thing. And some of them have like little spaces where you can actually do that. And this is such a fantastic book.
I love that. Do you mind showing our camera that so our viewers can see?
Perfect.
Yes.
So if you're interested, that's a great one. I'm actually interested in it
here,
too.
I'll read something from it.
Yeah.
Oh. Well then, do you like working within a hierarchy? Do you like working independently? Are you comfortable generating your own assignments? Do you want less of the same for more money? Do you want more of the same tiny writing? Do you want more of the same? Do you want more of the same? Do you want more of the same? Yeah. So that's just one of them.
It kind of reminds me of like when we were younger, those quizzes in the magazines that you kind of follow which way to go. Oh, I love that.
It also sounds like one of those burn books where you like completely fill it out. There's some pages you destroy, and then you like literally burn it after.
Yes.
It sounds like that, but like less like.
And there's different sections in this book, so they're color coordinated.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I don't know what the color coordinations are, but this one is like, what are your expectations? In broad strokes, how do you think your life will unfold? And it's such great information, good for a journal.
I love that. I might have to check it out for myself, actually.
This Day Creativity Challenge. I got this one through Stairways as part of our like book club, and it's fantastic. So it helps you to think more creatively, not necessarily artistically, which we all know that that's what we kind of confuse with art, right? I got to be artistic. No, it's just creative. So it gives you really like very brief like prompts that you can do that really just encourage your brain to think in different creative ways. So this one is think of at least 20 things you can do with a bucket. And it's not just like, oh, fill the bucket with water. Like, what can you do with that bucket? Like, what do you do with it?
I like
Actually
that a
might
lot.
need to get that one.
Yes, this is so good.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This one, the emoji challenge. Draw 15 medium circles. Now add lines and shapes to make 15 different emojis, expressing 15 different emotions.
I like that.
Yeah, so I have mine in here. So I have like, this is my bite my tongue emoji and my croaked emoji. My insomniac emoji. Yes. Bob Ross emoji, of course. You know.
Oh, I love that.
I love
That's
that. That's so
amazing.
cool.
Yeah, I love this book. I
have-
recommend that to everyone.
I'm definitely going to have to check out both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so
The
much.
30-day creativity challenge one, that'd be cool for our art support groups as like a
Yeah.
intro to the day.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I do
Yeah.
like that.
So definitely
idea.
check those out.
They seem like not hard to do, but they
It's
amazing. Yeah.
It just challenges you to think differently. One of them in here is like create 30 different signatures in a different personality. Like if you were a different person, what would that signature look like?
That's so cool.
Really
Yeah.
amazing.
That's so cool.
I love that. Thank
I
you so
like
much
that a
for
lot.
sharing that. Yeah. You heard it here, which books those are. So make sure to check them out if you're interested. I know I personally will be checking both of those out.
Definitely. Kind of starting to wrap up. This is should be a fun question. What's your favorite part of being an art therapist?
Going through it with the clients, like those aha moments where you're just like, you can see it and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Yeah, it's the best because you can see it, you know, and with talk therapy, it's like, you know, they come back in for the next session and they're like telling about all these changes or whatever. And you're like, yeah, that's nice. But in the moment, you can see the change. You can see the light bulb moments for them. And
That has to be
Yeah.
amazing. Like working towards that for you and for your client to have that moment must be incredible.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you mentioned your private practice in Stairways. So how can someone get involved with or learn more about art therapy? And also while you're at it, if you don't mind sharing how people can get in contact with you at Stairways or your private practice.
Yeah, so to get involved with art therapy, honestly, there's not a lot of art therapists right now. I mean, like, I'm a third generation art therapist, you know, like that's like my grandparents started this. Like that's wild, right? So there's not that many, but it is more popular these days. So you can go on Psychology Today. That would be the best way, and just type in like art therapist, and you'll have like, you know, whatever come up in the area. As for Stairways, there are 3 art therapists within Stairways, and they all work within the drug and alcohol program. So if you do have a drug and alcohol problem, or you think you might, and are interested in art therapy, then, you know, come on in and voice that, you know, communicate that you want to work with an art therapist, and we will do our best to accommodate that. Yeah, what was the other thing that you said?
And your private practice, if you want to share how people can get in contact with you there and a little bit more about your private practice.
So you can look me up on Psychology Today. That's Shelby Neal. And, you know, my page will come up, and then my contact information is on that page. My email, my phone number. I prefer text messages and emails.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, so in my private practice, I just do one-on-one sessions, whereas at Stairways I do groups and individuals.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much. We
Thank
really
you very much
appreciate
for
you
coming.
joining us and sharing, you know, everything. That's fascinating. I love that. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned something new today, and definitely check those books out if you're interested. Shelby, again, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on here.
Of course.
It was a pleasure for me.
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Stigma Stompers Podcast. We truly appreciate all your support.
If you want to see more about what we do in our community, make sure you check out our website. It's namierie.org. Make sure you also click on our t-shirt store tab so you can buy a t-shirt. We get a portion of all the proceeds. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter. It has all of our programming and event updates.
Another way you can get involved is if you feel comfortable sharing your personal story. You can email us at info@namierie.org, or you can give us a call at 814-456-1773.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!